Ellis Hammond, welcome to the Capital Raiser Show. I'm super excited to have you on here, man. We were just chatting a little bit about all kinds of things, podcasting, multifamily syndication. How are you doing? Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, Ruben, I'm so pumped to be here, man. I love being on these shows because, if a guy like me can come from a background that I came from, I really do believe anybody can get started in this space, really begin to live life on their own terms. So pumped to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm looking at your background. You got this crazy, beautiful studio. It's like I just built mine, and it looks like ghetto compared to yours. But man,
I'll have to tell
that's
my
pretty
buddy,
pumping.
man.
So you just started your podcast. Why don't we start with, before we go into your podcast, because I want to talk everything podcasting. A lot of my listeners are launching their own podcasts.
Nice.
I'm sure some of yours are too. But tell us about your background. I know that you're in multifamily syndication. Where did that all begin for you?
Yeah, man. So like I said, I do not have a real estate background, do not come from wealth. I actually was a Christian pastor for 6 years coming out of college. I was serving on kind of college universities here in San Diego. And our ministry was a little bit different in that, it wasn't just me, but we were really building a team out here. And we grew to about a team of 15. And so honestly, like, the reason we got into real estate investing was two reasons, man. It's one, we were broke, right? Because, in ministry, you're not making a whole lot of money. But two, like, we started asking the question, how do we begin to steward not just our time, but also our wealth? And the problem was we didn't have any wealth, but we really wanted to be able to use that in different ways. And so we got hungry, and real estate was the vehicle that I call real estate the simple man's last chance. It's like, it is the vehicle that pretty much anyone who works hard, who studies, who has a growth mindset, I say, can really make a great life for themselves and others. And so we started with the duplex here in San Diego, and then eventually realized, like, I love, and I think this is a little bit of your story too, right? Like, duplexes are great, but for what I say, the God-sized vision that we had, a duplex was thinking too small. And so that's when we got into the world of syndication.
Yeah, man. I want to go deeper into your story, but you got to stop there and talk about this, because I've heard a couple of your shows. I heard the one with Dan Hanford most recently, and you were asking him about really self-realizing or taking, the grandeur of what God wants for us. And I'm very focused on self-realizing right now in this particular moment of my life. And what that means to me, because of the things that I'm attracted to, because my father was a real estate investor, it means that I get the most adrenaline and the greatest satisfaction from this particular arena, this space, this multifamily or real estate investing space. The bigger I become, the more fulfilled I become. And that's probably because it's an homage to my father, who was a real estate investor. And I come from a Christian and Catholic background. I went to Catholic school, and I don't know that I'm exactly on the same page as a lot of Christians and Catholics. My mom is very involved with the church, but I think in general, when I look at things, we actually believe in the same things. We just speak maybe a little bit of a different language, but it really all is the exact same thing. So I'm really excited to dive deep into that, because I think what you're talking about is really scaling and fulfilling what God wants for us, as real estate investors, and to become abundant, because God is abundant, right?
Yep.
So do you have any thoughts on that, or should we continue to talk about multifamily?
Man, I mean, this is the weakest been the whole time on this, because this is so my story. I remember somebody was a family member of mine. He was a real estate investor, and I didn't know many, so I was kind of latching on to anybody I could get a hold of. And he gave me a little booklet. It was called The Millionaire Mindset or something. Millionaire Mindset, I think is what it was called, or My $1 Million Mindset. And in the book, the author had instructed you to say out loud, I'm committed to getting rich. And I remember reading that chapter and thinking, I can't say that. It's not right to be rich. It's not okay to get wealthy. So, because for me and my Christian background, I think a lot of people in the Christian faith, there is this real fear around wealth and around money, and for good reason, right? I mean, there are a lot of passages where Jesus says, like, do not store for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, but store for yourself treasures in heaven, right? So there is a warning to that. But what I'm beginning to realize as I go on this journey of wealth building is that simply what capital equals is influence. And the more capital you have, and if you really think about it like that, that capital really does equal influence. I've never seen money change anybody, right? I've just seen money reveal what's already there.
Hmm.
And so I had to really begin to wrestle with this idea of like, if God really has saved me, I really am on a path to serve him and really help others. Why would I not want influence? Right? Like, what is so wrong with this? And I just really had to begin to change my thinking and change my mindset around this idea that, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of ways to kind of get sidetracked, but the idea of having mentors in a community and people like yourself, Ruben, to kind of bounce ideas off of, I went all in and said, and finally, I think I'm able to say I'm committed to getting rich, not because, I want to go sail off to the Caribbean for a year, but no, because I want to have influence. I want to have impact. I want to help people. I think that's right and of God.
Yeah, I actually call that self-realization because I believe that I can become my greatest self through service to other people. That's one way to put it. But really what I call it is just helping people make money and create generational
Yeah.
wealth in real estate and
Yeah.
multifamily.
And isn't that like, and we don't have to stay on this religious topic very long, but I do think if there are some of your listeners who are religious, I want to say this. Isn't that also reflective of God to care about the next generation of your family, right? Does God not often say he's looking out for your kids and their kids and their kids, for you as a real estate investor to help think about somebody else's next generation and to set them up in a way that would serve them? Like, that's an incredible blessing. And so I just, I want to point that out and say you're doing that. And so are many of your listeners that I think, is worth celebrating.
Well, let's talk about this because to go off topic a little bit, there's some really wealthy people, I believe, like Bill Gates and maybe some other, and I could be wrong about him specifically, but that they specifically choose not to leave their children any money because of the hard lessons that they learned and the people that they became as a result of doing it all themselves. Is there a mindset that you would think is inappropriate or appropriate, or let's dive into that specific
Yeah.
topic? We haven't talked about that on my show.
That's really, really good point. But if you actually, because I've read that before, but let's be clear, Bill Gates is not. It's not that he's not giving them enough, like zero. He's giving them enough to get started and to be able to start their own business or their own venture, but not enough to be able to do absolutely nothing for the rest of their lives. And I think that's really wise of Bill and of other very wealthy people that I've talked to, because I ask that question on my show sometimes too, like, how do you teach your kids about wealth? Because for me, I'm hungry because of my story and where we came from. And if everything would have just been given to me, I may have not had that drive. And honestly, the more people I interview who are really successful and still driven to be successful, even after they're quote unquote wealthy, have that similar narrative, right? Where they just love the process. And so I think part of it is teaching your kids to not be so focused about the destination, but to love the process, to love the impact that you can create along the way, to really enjoy it. And I think that's the biggest difference. I interviewed a guy by the name of Jordan Rayner. He wrote a book called Master of One. And it's this idea that we're committed to mastery over our skill, not necessarily committed to just achieving or gaining wealth at the end. It's how do we become excellent at something and really enjoy that as we do that? So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I think to answer your question, it's teaching them to love the process. Do you love the process? Do you love what you're doing? That's really the most important question.
Yeah, man. To be honest, I haven't always loved the process. I know that at some point in the future, it's very likely that I'll inherit some of the family assets. And sometimes I just want to be lazy. And like 18 months ago, before I was in syndication, I was at the family ranch, just kind of rehabbing it. It's an old beat up property from 1902 sitting on 5 acres. And I wasn't really doing anything for a few months. And I quickly got extremely unfulfilled and was like, I have to go back to Phoenix. And like the moment that I made that decision, all of a sudden the universe started to conspire on my behalf, or God started to conspire on my behalf and brought me a previous connection that I had from traveling in Mexico, which ended up being my wife. She invited me to New York and we got engaged, and now we're married, and we're talking about, maybe this would be an interesting subject for the show. We're talking about, because we're legally married, but we're not married under the church. And we're trying to decide, is this something that we want to do? Are we doing it just for the family, or are we doing it for ourselves? What does it mean to be married under God? Do you have any thoughts on that? Just real quick. I'm curious.
No, I'm not going to give any marriage advice. Keep me out of trouble on this show, man. But that's pretty cool that, you had that realization and that person was your wife. So no, and interesting enough, I don't come from the Catholic background. So I also really don't quite know how that works in the sense of being married in the church, quote unquote. So good luck. That's about all I can say.
All right, cool. So I have questions. Let's definitely dive into your business, but I want to go into a couple of the books that I've read that speak about creation of wealth, like Think and Grow Rich, and what your thought processes are on these types of books.
I've read Think and Grow Rich several times. Yeah, honestly, that for me in my mindset, in the background that I came from, that was a hard book for me to read again. Like the first time I read it, it was it was one of those things, like it was so refreshing. I was like, oh, I never knew you could think like this. Kind of like took the veil from my eyes, but it was also like kind of guilt. Like I was careful who I told I was reading that book. Like, are you going to be okay if I'm reading this? Because it took me a while to really, this idea of like thinking abundantly. So that, just the idea of like being able to think rich, think and grow rich, that there's something massive about that our thoughts really are the starting point to our actions. And so that book was transforming for me. One of the things also in that book, very practically speaking, though, is he talks about the power of a mastermind and the power of a community. And Ruben, people ask me all the time, what's your best advice to young entrepreneurs? I'm like, if you want to grow faster than, if you want to accelerate any goal that you have, you need to start growing your network. You need to get around people, because I truly believe this, that for people who are really putting in the work and the effort, and they know what they want in life, you really are one connection, maybe two connections away from that. And that's really the power of a mastermind, or bringing like-minded people together in a room to really accomplish your goals. That has been life-changing for me, has accelerated every area of my life.
That's so cool. All right. Tell us about Multifamily Syndication. What do you got? What have you been doing? I just barely know that you're involved in it, but I have no idea how many units. Where are you at in the business?
It's so much fun talking about it, isn't it? Like, do you ever get tired of talking about like multifamily and syndication?
I think I'm going to be doing this for years. Like this, I'm pumped up about it all the time.
Found something that we really like, that we really enjoy. I was just last night, we were, 2 hours, 7:00 at night with my real estate team. And we're having a nice glass of whiskey, and we're talking about, our off-market list that we're going through. And it's just like, it's what it is. The reason I love it and the reason you love it is because it has really become a community. It has really become a way of life. It has really given me deep friendships and relationships. So I think more than anything, that's what I love about multifamily. That's what I'm in it. I would say we're pretty young. We own about $10 million right now in assets under management. Some property here in San Diego, and then a large complex in the Memphis area. And then we have a group that we have built, some young guys, but incredibly talented group of guys here in San Diego. And we're focused in Phoenix, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Kansas City are the deals that kind of where we got relationships at with brokers, property managers, and starting to really source some deals, beginning to make offers. So yeah, that's really where we are on the multifamily side. I got started in multifamily because I was raising money for our nonprofit, and realized, we did the duplex, knew that we loved real estate, and said, well, how do we keep doing this? Like someone kind of approached me, taught me, kind of set me on like, hey, you ever heard about syndication? I'm like, is this legal? Like, is this okay? Is this, like, are you sure I can do this? This seems too good to be true. So we did our first deal by essentially partnering with a more experienced operator and leveraging our network. I have just found that's what I'm really good at, is building a community and building a network. If your audience is watching the video, I got a shirt on right now that says Eggs and Cash Flow. This is actually our investor breakfast here in San Diego. We have probably one of the fastest growing investor communities here in San Diego. And we meet at 7 a.m. and we have breakfast together. We talk about real estate. It's such an incredible community. And that's really what I'm passionate about, building, is communities. So yeah, we're definitely looking to grow this year. We've put together a mastermind around multifamily full of incredible operators, and really think 2020 is going to be a great year for us.
Yeah, let's talk about that. When you say we, are you talking about the same people that you invest with in all markets? Are you talking about, I have some operators that I work with in some markets and some that I don't? Who is we?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that I originally got started and did even our first deal was we, started I mean, I just was showing up. I personally was just showing up to every multifamily conference and getting to know this community and met some really incredible operators. Like I said, I had an experience raising money because I was in a nonprofit. And so I was doing fundraising for a living. And so I just essentially, got the nerve to ask one of these operators that have been building relationships, say, hey, I'd really like to come alongside of you, really leverage your expertise while you really leverage my network. Can we work together on a deal? And that's how we co-GP'd on a deal. I did a couple things in the deal, but mostly I did investor relations and I helped raise capital. And so that was our real entry into that. And we have essentially built a pretty large investor community simply around saying, hey, I have good relationships with operators all over the country. I'm seeing deals every single week, and I'm going to be starting investing in some of these. If you'd like to invest with me, sign up on my newsletter. I'll let you know on the deals I'm investing in and come alongside with me. So that's originally, how we got started, how we did our first deal. Now we'd like to start doing some of our own deals, but we still do that. I think this year we'll probably invest about $10 million in private equity into other operators in their deals. And then we'll probably acquire about 200 to 250 units on our own in those markets that I was just telling you about.
Well, we got 90 units that we just purchased in December, and we did it with our own cash. We're trying to go back and actually syndicate it. It's a 506C, so technically I'm allowed to talk about it.
So you guys bought that, and now you're going to essentially kind of raise the equity that you put in yourself.
Pull our money out and do other things with it, and then bring some really investors along for the ride. And a lot of people can't do that, right? So if they have a deal and they don't raise the money for it, deal over. They lost their earnest and anything else that they have on the line. But we were able to take it down.
That's really cool because you can show your investors like, hey, the property's already performing. We're just trying to get our capital out so that we can go back. So I love that model. Actually, if you have enough, you have enough money to do your own deals. And that's a great way for listeners. If they don't have a track record and you just got money and you can, put all this together, it's a lot easier to go pitch a deal and say, hey, this thing is rolling. We have this thing. Here's what it looks like. We're just looking to exchange our money back out and give you the return. That's pretty cool. I haven't heard too many people do that.
Let's talk about that. So with multifamily syndication, getting started or getting involved with it, one of the hardest things that we are going through, I guess it's not that hard, but it is time consuming, this process, because we have a background in wholesaling and single family. And before we used to find a deal, get investor capital for it after we found the deal. And that model doesn't work for multifamily syndication. So there's this evolution that we are going through right now where we're cultivating a new investor database, creating an educational platform and a communication infrastructure so that we can stay front of mind with our investors. Mm-hmm. But tell me about some of the systems and tools that you have to do that. Do you use a MailChimp? Are there specific investor portals that you use? What are your thoughts on those types of communication tools?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that grows as you grow. Right now, our main sources of capital, I mean, I think, let's just start most relationally is our investor breakfast. And so right now we have anywhere from 30 to 50 members that will attend our breakfast. And, that's a great source of capital for us. We have not necessarily leveraged that yet, but I've had plenty of people come up to me and say, hey, man, I got 100K, 200K, or I'm about to sell this deal. I'm looking for a place to place capital. That happens every single week we do this breakfast. And so there's definitely kind of an untapped source there that we have because we sit at the center of this breakfast that we're hosting. And people really look to us as the experts to really teach them, advise them on what to do. And so I think if you're just getting started, or if you're looking kind of go to the next level, start your own meetup and figure out ways to really build relationships with people and put yourself at the center of that. So that would be that's one way we're really doing that. My personal network has been the second thing, and just essentially reaching out to them saying, hey, I kind of made a transition out of the pastoral ministry to focus on our business. And so it's really natural to say, hey, this is what we're doing now. Would you like to be on our email list? I'm going to shoot an email once a month and just keep you updated. So simple as that. And then the other thing, kind of what you're asking system wise, the way that I grew my investor list early on was actually going on podcast shows like this, just to tell people my story and say, hey, this is who I am. And, it was early on, I was like, hey, I don't have much experience, but I have a great story. And people really resonated with that. And so, we have to be really specific, I have a CRM. It's called Close, CLOZE. And I think it's a great CRM. It's similar to Pipedrive if you're familiar with that.
I've heard of
And
it.
what that allows me to do, like right now, I'm sending out investor emails about a deal that we're looking at together. And instead of sending like a mass email, what I can do is essentially I can create each investor into like their own deal. And then they can become their own campaign. And so I can send them essentially the same email, but I can track if they've opened it. I can click and see what we have conversated before. So if I want to leave a personal note, and that really helps me kind of leave a personal touch with my investors. But at the same time, like I don't have time to send 200 individual or write out 200 individual emails. So I can kind of automate it while at the same time keep it personal and keep track of where I am with them kind of in the investor pipeline, you might call it. So I really highly recommend using a CRM that allows you just to keep track of your conversations with people.
Very cool. So let's talk about your podcast. So I'm checking out your studio. It looks really nice. Where are you located at right now? Where's the studio at?
This is in a buddy's garage,
Oh,
actually.
whoa, check you out.
Part garage, part storage room. So we have pretty much I wish I could take my camera and show you around this whole thing. It's like bookshelves and it's just really great. But we've made it, it's like our meeting office / studio. And I
Looks
produce some
great.
good stuff here, man. This
Yeah.
is the fountain of knowledge right here.
How long have you had that background that you currently have?
4 weeks.
Did you start with just like with a laptop? Tell me about the process of creation for your podcast.
Yeah, I know. My kitchen table was is where I started my podcast show. I didn't have a mic, I don't think, for my first show. Maybe I did, but someone actually gifted me this mic. I bought the bass. We're still recording on my computer. I actually got my iPhone over here too, recording me. So things are starting to evolve. But yeah, really, a lot of it was my kitchen table and reaching out to folks. Say, hey, I got a podcast show now. Would you like to be on it? And we've advanced from that now, of course. But yeah, I mean, early on, I had a vision to interview people that I wanted to see if there were people like me who were really thinking deeply about the intersection of faith and wealth creation. Because I didn't know that existed until I started Kingdom Capitalist. And so I just said, hey, we're going to start a podcast show because we have the vision of really creating a community to bring people together that are really thinking deeply about these two things, faith and wealth. And so we started a podcast show, and I just started interviewing the first two guys I interviewed were two of my buddies, the guys that I was talking with. I was like, hey, would you be my first two guests? One, because I need the practice, and two, because I don't really know anybody yet. I need some time to interview some more folks. So that was really the start.
So I told you that I started raising capital for small 4-unit properties here in Phoenix. This is back during the crash. Shortly thereafter, in 2011, I had advanced through this personal development company, and the last course that we were specifically offering only here in Phoenix was this wealth creation course. And one of the things that we needed to do in that course was raise a bunch of money we were going to rebuild a school in Costa Rica, go on a trip to Costa Rica, which is abundant thinking to do international travel, and then do this, what we call Giving Day, where we would put together a carnival for a bunch, an impoverished school and donate a bunch of bicycles. And the goal was to raise $100,000, and they asked somebody to take bottom line for it. And I have the opposite story of you, where you learned how to raise money for ministry, and then you learned how to raise money for real estate. I learned how to raise money for real estate, and then I took on bottom line to raise money for charity. It's for this school, and it was hard, man. That transition was hard to raise money, but we ended up raising just shy of $100,000. We rebuilt a school in Costa Rica, and then donated all kinds of goodies to a school down in South Phoenix. And that was amazing. But tell me about this process that you went through, the transition. What are the major similarities and differences between raising money for a ministry or church or charity versus raising money for real estate?
I've never been asked that question, but I would love to talk about it, actually. That's a fantastic question. What I learned early on was that when you ask for people's donations and you ask for people's investing dollars, they come out of two different pockets. And so truthfully, it's harder to get the money out of the donation pocket than it is the investing pocket. That's what I've learned. That it was a lot easier to get the first $50K for a real estate deal than it was to get my first, I don't know, $5,000 check for my nonprofit. I got in the time that we were raising 6 years, I only had a handful of investors ever write me a $5,000 check. A lot of it was a couple $100s at a time. And so the first investment deal we did, my investor essentially not wrote me, but essentially wired 50 grand into our deal. It just hit me, like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking way too small. Like, I always thought that people just didn't have enough money. And that was my thinking in the nonprofit world. I'm asking for money and people don't have a lot of it. What I realized was people got a lot more money than you think. It just, they have to get in their own mind, is this worthy of my investment, right? And it's a lot easier to make that rationale when they can see an ROI. It's a lot harder when you're speaking about, hey, your ROI is essentially impact, or it's eternity, or whatever it might be. It's a good feeling. You're helping somebody. That's a lot harder to sell than, hey, your money's going to grow. And so that's definitely the biggest thing. What I tell my team now, because I still, mentor and help them think about fundraising, is I say double what you're asking for. Like, we've always been taught to ask for, $100 a month, $1,200 a year. I'm like, ask for $500 a month, because, if you don't ask, like, if you only ask for 100, people rationalize that. Yeah, I can give 100 a month. But if you ask for 500, most likely they're not going to get mad at you. They're going to say, I can't really do 500, but maybe I could do 250. Right. And so that's something I learned after getting out of the nonprofit space, is people have more money than I think. And it's just helping them really realize what they're getting for that. And the other thing is having an asset like a multifamily syndication that we both believe is an incredible asset to be invested in. I have something of value to give to them. It really translates incredibly well into the nonprofit spaces. Do you believe that what you're offering people to invest in is also worthy of their money? And it's really believing that, hey, I have something, AKA my ministry, AKA this opportunity to help somebody. This is worth people's dollars, and people should be giving to this, and, because this is going to change lives. And so I think it's being as convinced about your mission as it is in this investment opportunity. Because the reality is, like, don't store up for yourself treasures on earth, right, where moth and rust destroy, but store up for yourself treasures in heaven. And so you are giving them an opportunity to really do that.
One of the things, back to this wealth consciousness seminar that I took, or a 90-day program that I took, it was somewhere around there. It was not religious, but one of the things that they really focused on in regards to abundance was this concept of tithing, where you're giving a portion of what you have, whether it's time or money, away to your charity of choice. It doesn't necessarily have to be religion. It can, you can give your time as, free mentorships, helping people in business ownership, sponsoring their personal development, et cetera, et cetera. You can come up with a million ideas, helping out animals or your church or whatever makes you feel good, right? But so from your perspective on this ministry side and this abundant thinking side and the spiritual aspect of tithing, do you have any belief that it is necessary or advisable to tithe a portion of your money away to be from a place of abundance?
Yeah. I mean, I think tithing is the greatest excuse the church created to only have to give away 10%. Is the best way that I can say it. It's hard to not speak about this from my faith perspective. So if you would allow me just to speak that,
please.
It really comes from a groundedness to realize that nothing we have is ours, and everything we have is a gift. And it doesn't mean that, again, we shouldn't go earn something so that we can enjoy that gift, but realize enjoying that is also a gift. And so it just comes out of that abundance mentality, and that abundance does not come from you. You don't have the abundance. God is the one who is abundant, and he has an abundance to give back to you. And he delights in those who want to give abundantly to others. And so for me as a Christian, it's just, that's way easier said than done. But don't get me wrong. My wife and I, we give 10%, and right now where we are, that's as much as we probably can really stretch to give at the moment to cover our things. We'd love to be able to give a lot more than that and hope that we can. And so 10% is definitely a guide for us. But yeah, I do think there is something about the way that we're created, our minds, the same way that when we take a day off, like a Sabbath day, and we rest, it's funny how that originated from the Bible. But now you read a lot of business books, a lot of self-development books, and they'll tell you if you want to be more productive, you actually have to take a break. Why? Because we have to rest. Like it's how we're wired. It's how we're made. In the same way, we're not made just to hoard things up. We're made to be, to have this abundance mentality, to give away, to invest our time and our dollars. It generates more things for us. So, you could call it, this is the way the world works. This is how God's created it. However you want to see it. The reality is, like, it's who we are, and it's what we're meant to do, and it will in return give back to you.
Man, this conversation is flying by. We have a couple of things that we need to cover in the next about 7 or 8 minutes. So let's actually jump into, I have this new thing that I've launched. It's called the lightning round.
Oh, come on.
Let's go ahead and get started.
I'm ready.
What is your favorite genre of music?
This is a hard question for me. I'm sorry. I'm such in a podcast right now. I don't really listen to a whole lot of music, but I'm a big country fan. I'm from South Carolina, and I actually like Christian hip hop. So both of those have been two genres for me.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that you were from South Carolina. And then your favorite morning activity?
Oh, I'm up at 4:50 a.m. I meet with a group of entrepreneurs, actually, and we do accountability over our goals, and we go through that together. That has been incredible for me because it gets me up. It gives me time to really meditate and think through my day. Actually, I write kind of what are my 3 biggest actions for the day so that I know if I won the day or not. So for me, it's just having that time to really lay out
Very
the
cool.
most important things.
What is your favorite social media platform?
Come on, man. This is easy. You know this. This is LinkedIn all day.
LinkedIn is the new Facebook,
has become, honestly, it's helped me so much. It's built my brand. It's helped me grow my network. It's how I've, got on shows like this. And so LinkedIn for sure all the way. Even though I'm trying to grow my Instagram following, and it's pretty tough.
It can be challenging, yeah. So what about your favorite beverage of choice?
Love a good Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon.
Oh,
I'm actually going to a wine tasting tonight with my wife. We're doing a really nice little date night, a Napa Valley kind of themed wine tasting. So I just really love a good glass Napa Cab.
Okay, real quickly, do you prefer like the plum tasting, the medium? Do you like the chocolate? Do you like the green pepper flavors? What are your favorite flavors? I really like just a good full-bodied wine. I want that thing, like when I take a sip, I want it to like coat my mouth in such a way. And I love just a really good fruit forward. Yeah, some good plum flavor, a little bit of, dark chocolate, raspberry type feel. Oh man, I just could talk about it all day. We can do a podcast on wine. Podcast on wine, right? How about a secret getaway? Where do you go when you want to disappear?
The beach. I love the water. I love being by the water. I love standing by the water. I love being in the water. And so I live in San Diego. I grew up in South Carolina. You guys have been very gracious to let me, be by the water my whole life. So for me, it's the beach, the ocean.
Yeah, we want to spend some more time at the beach too. What about your favorite travel destination to either go to or a place that's on your radar that you want to go to?
I'd really like to go back to Barcelona in Spain, one of my favorite cities in all the world. Incredible cuisine and people. It's beautiful. It has one of my favorite places in all the world, La Sagrada Familia, which is one of the largest, most fabulous churches in the world. Incredible place. I'm looking forward to going back there.
Yeah, they have a plate there. I think it's called the Spanish tortillas with like potatoes. And
it's amazing. I lived there 6 months. Yeah, it's Spanish tortilla will blow your mind. Paella, blow your mind. It's unbelievable. You got wine and you got paella.
Oh yeah, they have great Rioja wines.
Riojas. Yes.
Those are awesome. And then, okay, so how about this one? How long would you like to live?
Wow. With technology these days, and living older, as long as I had my health, I'd like to see where we would be at in 100 years, where this world goes in 100 years. So I'm 30 now, and so that gives me at least 70. I'm hoping for a good 70. I think we can really create some great things here in the next 70 years.
Yeah, man, I definitely want to cross 100 years. So that's cool. Thank you for entertaining me with that. I love that little segment that we created. And I credit Ellie Perlman for that because I stole it from her show. So
That's good, man. Those are great questions. I'm feeling proud of that moment, actually. I was quick on a couple of those answers. Those are hard questions.
Very cool. Okay, so I need to find about your business model. What kind of property are you specifically seeking and in what markets? I think you went over a few of the markets, but are you looking
Yeah.
for 100 units plus, 200 plus, a specific dollar amount? Tell me more about the asset that you're looking for.
Yeah, so specifically our group, we're targeting anything 50 units or more in those three markets, Kansas City, Albuquerque, and Phoenix, 1970s or newer. We don't really want anything older than that. Light to medium value add, I wouldn't say we're scared of a larger project. We just want to make sure we have the right systems and teams in those markets to be able to take that down. And so like Phoenix, we have a really good property management company that we can work with to do, to really be in charge of our renovations and stuff. So as we build that out in those other markets, we can look to do something a little bit more. So typically 80% or more occupied, class C plus to really B plus type assets. Just because, again, like it really does come down to, do we have the capacity to execute our business plan?
Yeah.
And so that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah, you and I are going to need to sit down and nurture our relationship because could be some synergies considering that we live in this market.
Hey, that's why we do these shows, right?
Right,
so
man. Oh, man, the connections that we get on this show.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's great, but we're cutting it close. Let's go into how people can get a hold of you and then tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah. So our podcast, Kingdom Capitalist, really is kind of our outward facing component to really begin to help a lot of people think about this idea of faith and capitalism. It's called Kingdom Capitalist. And we interview, some of the most amazing Christian entrepreneurs, business owners, real estate investors on the planet who are really thinking deeply about this intersection and doing amazing things. The back end of Kingdom Capitalists is our mastermind group. It's the #1 mastermind community for Christian real estate entrepreneurs. We have an advisory board and a membership group. Right now, we're approaching the $2 billion mark in the sense of assets under management. So between our advisory group and our membership group, we have about $2 billion of experience within our group. And so if any of your audience really resonates with my message and what we talked about today, would love to have a conversation with them. And they can just go to kingdomcapitalist.co to check that out, or find me on LinkedIn. That's where they can connect with me. So anyway, or go to the Kingdom Capitalist Show on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you listen.
Yeah, give Ellis a 5-star rating and come on to my show, please. Give me a 5-star rating. I'm just going to go ask for it right now.
That's it.
Great.
That's it. We were talking about reviews on the show. Reviews really do help. And so I hope, Ruben, your audience would, because especially when you're reaching out to guests early on, it's so important to have good reviews because people look at that. Oh, do I want to go on the show? How many reviews do you have? So definitely go leave Ruben 5-star review and then share it on LinkedIn so we all can talk about it. That would be awesome.
Capital Raiser Nation. Oh, yeah, man. You got to go over that tip that you gave out to podcasters, people that are looking to podcast. Check out this tip that Ellis came up with.
Yeah. So, it's all about the launch. Like the launch is so important. I see a lot of early podcasters getting tripped up here, not taking the launch more serious. Couple things. You need to launch you need to have 10 shows. You really need to have about 15 shows on deck. And here's why. You need to launch with 5 because people these days like to binge listen. And so if you don't want to just launch with 1, because then what do? They need to listen to number 2. They need to listen to number 3. So you need to launch with 5. And then you need to launch one every single day for the first week. And then you can go to your weekly or monthly schedule, whatever you're going to do. But it's really important that, and it helps with your rating as well. If you're creating new content, iTunes sees that and they promote you. So launch with 5, once a day for 5 days, and then get on your routine. But what I was telling Ruben early on was I had a mentor say, hey, before you launch, you have to launch like a trailer episode for iTunes to essentially approve it. Go get all of your friends to leave you a 5-star rating before you launch your first show, before you start promoting it. And the reason that is when guests come to your show and they see that you have, you just started, it looks a lot better when your show already has 20 or 30 or 40 5-star reviews than having 0 reviews. It literally causes people to stick around or maybe hit subscribe and say, oh, people like this show. I might like this show as well. So that was a great thing. I think we had 40-star reviews already. And then pretty quickly, you said today, we're at 138. So
I think so. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Tell us about, I wanted to hear the screenshot tip because that one was really cool.
Yeah. And so what we've been doing recently, because, we don't necessarily need more reviews, even though we'll definitely take them. What I'm really looking to do is just grow our audience and then grow our followers. So what I've done is essentially give free advertising to my audience. If they go to my show, they listen to my show, and they take a screenshot of the episode and they post that on any of their social media platforms, I'll actually go through that. I'll write down their names. And on the next show, I actually read their LinkedIn bio to my audience. Say, hey, this was so-and-so. Thanks so much for your review. This is what his business does. And my entire audience now, got to hear about this guy's show or this guy's business. And so that has been really cool. A lot of people have been actually taking advantage of that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think I want to offer that to my audience. If you take a screenshot of the show and then post it on social media, I'll actually talk about you and your business on my show.
Tag us, tag me, and I'll interact with it too. I'll definitely make sure that we can get this thing going. So let's make that happen.
Awesome. That's beautiful. So we're getting ready to wrap up, but I was hoping that you wouldn't mind actually closing this out with a little prayer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'd love to. I actually open every one of my shows with a prayer, so I would love to close yours with a prayer. Yeah, let's pray. God, thank you so much for this time and this opportunity. I just hope that it really does serve those who are listening to really think abundantly, to know that you are a God who is abundant, and you've shown us abundant grace and mercy. And so thanks for this time, and I pray that it would really create impact in the lives of many. Thanks for Ruben and this show, that you might continue to give him strength and encouragement and wisdom as he leads. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Oh, that's so awesome, man. I've loved having you on the show. I had no idea what to expect, but we went to so many cool different places, man. It's been so
fun. Thanks so much for just letting me be me and talking. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to getting to know you some more.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It's been a pleasure.